Good afternoon. This is Tim of the University of Vinyl. I want to cover a third pressing plant today. This is part of one of the series of videos I'm doing. And I've already covered Specialty Records Corporation, SRC, as well as the Monarch Pressing Manufacturing Company. I think that was the official title of Monarch. Specialty was based in Pennsylvania. Monarch, of course, was based in Los Angeles. Today I want to talk about Europadisk. Now, Europadisk started out in 1977, originally just as a plating facility. And the reason they called themselves Europadisk is because most of their state-of-the-art equipment was coming from Europe at the time. They were based in New York City, right in the Soho neighborhood, and operated that facility all the way up until 2005. I think they actually had to move somewhere down the line. Manhattan real estate, of course, was skyrocketing even at that time. And I think that they were forced out into a second facility. I think their second facility was in Long Island City. Anyway, they ceased operations in 2005, had a lot of success. After initially just starting out as a plating facility in 77, they eventually moved into a full-on pressing plant as well, and then started mastering records also. And in 1987, they actually added a direct metal mastering cutting facility. So they were able to do DMM titles as well from their premises. Now, as of 1981 with Europadisk, they started using very high quality Teldec. This is the very nice compound of vinyl, also known as virgin vinyl. KC600 is another name for it. Quiax is a very similar compound as well. And if you have any of the EDP pressings from 1981 onwards, you can know that they were state-of-the-art, almost audiophile quality records. There's a reason some of these titles I'm going to share with you went to Europadisk. They were concerned about the sound, the engineering, the output of what they did for a living, and they wanted their records to sound the absolute best. Now, it also helped that Europadisk was based in New York. There will be a common denominator you will see. I'm going to show 5 records today. Interestingly enough, 4 out of the 5 records today were mastered by Bob Ludwig at Masterdisc. So we're having a perfect storm. We're having the great facility at Masterdisc, the legendary mastering engineer Bob Ludwig at the helm, and then followed up by a state-of-the-art plating and pressing facility at Europadisk. The 5th title was actually mastered at Sterling Sound, also based in New York at the time, by the great Greg Kelby. It's really easy to identify Europadisk pressings. There is an EDP in an oval stamped into the records, typically between the years of 1980 onwards. When we talk about records in the later 1980s, the example I'm going to give today is a record where there is no stamped oval, but EDP is etched in the dead wax. So it's really simple to figure out if you have an EDP pressing. Of course, Discogs is your friend as well. Maybe you're the type who might want to just type in EDP into the search bar, and you can find a little bio on EDP, as well as all of the pressings that are known, as we stand right here in September 2022. But one of the great thrills that I have, one of the reasons I go digging for records regularly is because of a situation like an Europadisk pressing. I know they sound fantastic. I have experience with them, And if I see that little oval EDP, I have a hard time not walking out with that record, even if I already have a copy or two. But hence is the affliction that we all share. Thanks for tuning in today. I am going to start with a legendary Europadisk pressing that was actually plated at Europadisk. It was mastered by Bob Ludwig at Masterdisc, released in 1980. I am, of course, talking about Gaucho, the final Steely Dan album of the first run of albums. This was the 7th title released by Walter and Donald and various other helping hands, let's put it that way. This thing sounds freaking amazing. I am going to be very, very, very curious to see the reviews. I have not put down a down payment on this particular title as far as the acoustic sounds, Steely Dan UHQR reissues are concerned. It was noted that they're going to be using a one-off copy of the master tape that Robert Ludwig copied at the time. This thing, my argument for this, before I even hear of the reviews or maybe break down and buy one later, this is going to be hard to be bested when we have the combination of a Bob Ludwig title mastered from fresh master tapes at the time and plated at Europadisk. This is a fantastic sounding record. It is up there with one of my favorite Steely Dan records. If you're looking for this out in the wild, you want to find that original MCA pressing. This was the only Steely Dan title that actually came out originally on MCA as an original release. Everything else was on ABC up to that point. I just love the artwork on this title, but more importantly, this is an incredible album, and it is my reference point right now as we move forward into this kind of UHQR era. We will see what comes with these reissues. I am kind of on the edge of my seat waiting to see how they're going to sound. But for this title in particular, I am a little bit skeptical to see if it can be beaten. Now, inherently, if you're going to spread these tunes out over 245 RPM records on high quality clarity vinyl, okay, they have something there, but let's see how that copy transfers over and see what Bernie Grundman can do with it. Whether it's just going to be transferred flat from the Ludwig copy tape remains to be seen. I'm interested to see what happens there. In 1981, AC/DC put out very, very quickly as Atlantic Records could force them to do, the follow-up to Back in Black, and that was For Those About to Rock. And then on the back, We Salute You. Fantastic embossed cover. This is all embossed. Parts of the canon are embossed. Of course, the title of the band is embossed as well. This is a Europadisk pressing that I have as well. It contains fantastic songs like the title track, a COD, Let's Get It Up, Put the Finger on You, Snowballed, and Breaking the Rules, amongst others that I enjoy. Gatefold, nice kind of action shot of the band, produced by Mutt Lange. There it is, For Those About to Rock, We Salute You, with that very cool looking, I think that was a custom Atlantic label for this title, with the kind of the goldish brown matching the cover. And you will find EDP in the oval stamp in this record. Sounds absolutely amazing. And if you're looking for a good Great sounding copy of that album. Look no further than the Europadisk. Following Damn the Torpedoes, the album that Tom Petty teamed up with Jimmy Iovine, and of course Mike Campbell was there as well. They came out with the 1981 album, Hard Promises. Love that cover art. Petty is in a record shop, as you can see. Great black and white photography on the back. This happens to be a gold stamped promo, as you can see there. It is also a Europadisk pressing, and this was a fantastic Petty album. Of course, it's not going to be, there was a little bit of a letdown, but not really much. This thing, of course, is overshadowed by the previous album, but the quality of songwriting and the production on this album is top notch as well. Remember, famously, I think there is an episode of classic albums. They're talking about Damn the Torpedoes, and Iovine and Petty are kind of reminiscing and saying, it had to sound fucking amazing in your car. So they would cut a cassette, they would throw it into the cassette player of a car, and that's how they tested the sound quality of the production work on some of those songs. So this is no exception. Some of the songs, let's talk about those. The Waiting, what an incredible opener on side one of the more iconic Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers songs. Loved Night Watchman. King's Road, kind of an anthemic, great sounding song as well. Insider, if I'm not mistaken, has got Stevie Nicks along for the ride on that. The Criminal Kind, Letting You Go. This is a great album. This was the custom heavy cardstock inner sleeve. Love all this photography. This was issued on Backstreet Records with that custom label. A direct correlation to the cover art. Fantastic record. Look for Europadisk in the oval stamped in the dead wax. Synchronicity, released in 1983. This is the crowning achievement on the recording history of the Police. This is just a stupendous, nuanced, sophisticated album conceived by Sting, Andy Summers, and of course the incredible Stuart Copeland on drums and percussion. Also played a little bit of synth on this album. Famously, I think there are something like over 30 cover variations where they alternate the cover color art. Some will be leading with red, blue, yellow, etc., etc. There is an all gold copy of this that's quite rare. And then there is a black and white as well, which is also very hard to find. Also came with a custom label. Now, another cool kind of tidbit about this album, if you hold it up to a light, it is one of those translucent. Definitely, this was a Teldec vinyl release issued in 1983. This is a Europadisk pressing as well. Hence, it's in the video, right? But yeah, translucent purple. It is a gorgeous album, inside and out. Some of these songs, which are just etched into your brain if you grew up with this music. Synchronicity 1, Synchronicity 2, Miss Gradenko, that was a Stuart Copeland solo kind of composition. Oh My God, Walking in Your Footsteps, Every Breath You Take, Tea in the Sahara, Wrapped Around Your Finger, and King of Pain. This was an early first pressing. If you can find one with the EDP stamped in the runout, that's what you want. The sound quality is just incredible. One of the best sounding records in my collection. All of these original pressings that I'm sharing today are some of the best sounding originals in my collection. In 1987, we got the final independently released REM album on IRS Records, Document. What an album this was. It kind of felt like the end of an era. We had incredible songs that were just kind of lifting the presence and the awareness of REM as a supergroup. It's the end of the world as we know it. The Finest Work song and The One I Love. Those are the tent post tracks on this incredible album. This is the album where it does not have the Europadisk EDP stamped into dead wax. It's actually EDP etched, and it's a little bit hard to pick up, but it is definitely there. What a great album. This was, of course, the 5th REM full-length album released by the band. The next album to come out would be Green. It would be on Warner Brothers. Another great title as well. But if you want to hear Document in its full original glory, plenty of punch, plenty of drive, lots of slam, incredible bass on this thing, you want to find the Europadisk pressing. Document 1987 REM. That's today's video covering Europadisk. This is episode number 3 in my ongoing series of the pressing plants. Now remember, Europadisk started out primarily as a plating facility, but they would then very soon after become a full-fledged pressing facility, and then they became a mastering house as well, eventually featuring DMM cuts. Most of those DMM cuts that are on Europadisk are jazz titles, so just to let you know. Thanks for watching, everybody. I will be back later in the week with another episode. Take care.